The origins of the dowry system in India. Is dowry a Hindu custom? India is often portrayed as a regressive society when it comes to women's rights. Feminists and critics frequently point to practices like dowry, female feticide, and gender-based violence as evidence of deep-rooted patriarchy. But is the dowry system truly an ancient Hindu custom? Or is there more to the story? Let's take a closer look at the origins of dowry in India and uncover some surprising truths. Ancient India, a society without dowry? Believe it or not, ancient India was very different from what we see today. Historical records from travelers and scholars who visited India around 300 BC, like the Persian scholar Al-Biruni, reveal something fascinating. Dowry was virtually absent in Indian society. Instead, wealth was transferred from mother to daughter as Stridhan, a concept that gave women control over movable assets like jewelry, cash, and other valuables. This system empowered women and gave them a significant role in society. In fact, land and property were often non-transferable, and women held exclusive rights over their Stridhan. This meant that women had financial independence and a say in household matters. Far from being a patriarchal society, ancient India recognized the importance of women's contributions and protected their rights. The British influence. How dowry entered India. So, if dowry wasn't an Indian custom, where did it come from? The answer lies in colonial history. When the British arrived in India, they brought with them their own customs and legal systems. In Britain, dowry was a common practice until the 19th century. The British introduced this system to India, and over time, it became deeply entrenched in Indian society. But that's not all. The British also implemented laws that fundamentally changed the way property was inherited. Before colonialism, land and wealth could be passed down to both male and female heirs. However, the British introduced laws that made property inheritable only by males. If a family didn't have a male heir, the colonial government could confiscate their land. This created a cultural shift where having a son became not just a preference, but a necessity. These laws stripped women of their traditional rights and reduced their status in society. The British system of inheritance and the introduction of dowry together laid the foundation for the patriarchal practices we see today. Ironically, the very people who claimed to be civilizing India ended up imposing systems that marginalized women. The double standards of colonial consciousness. Here's something to think about. Why is dowry-related violence in India seen as a cultural crime, while similar crimes in the West are treated as individual acts? For example, in the United States, many spouses are killed for insurance money. Yet, these crimes are never labeled as a reflection of American culture. In India, however, every crime related to dowry is blamed on backward traditions and Hindu patriarchy. This double standard is a product of colonial consciousness. During British rule, every aspect of Indian culture was scrutinized and often misrepresented. Practices like dowry, which were introduced or exacerbated by colonialism, were portrayed as inherent flaws of Indian society. Meanwhile, the West conveniently ignored its own history of gender inequality and oppression. The modern reality of dowry in India. Today, the dowry system is a harsh reality for many Indian families. It has evolved into a tool of exploitation where brides are often judged by the amount of wealth they bring to their in-laws. This has led to horrific consequences, including dowry-related violence, harassment, and even murder. But it's important to remember that this wasn't always the case. The fight against dowry is not just about ending a harmful practice. It's about reclaiming the dignity and rights that women once held in ancient India. It's about challenging the colonial legacy that distorted our social systems and recognizing that the dowry system is not a reflection of Hindu culture, but a distortion of it. A call for change. Understanding the origins of dowry is the first step toward addressing the problem. By acknowledging the role of colonialism in shaping modern gender inequalities, we can begin to dismantle the systems that perpetuate them. At the same time, we must also hold ourselves accountable for the ways in which we continue to uphold these practices. The good news is that change is possible. Across India, activists, NGOs, and ordinary citizens are working tirelessly to empower women, challenge patriarchal norms, and create a society where dowry is no longer a burden. By educating ourselves and others, we can ensure that the next generation grows up in a world where women are valued for who they are, not for the wealth they bring. Conclusion: dowry is not a Hindu custom. The dowry system in India is often misunderstood as an ancient Hindu tradition. However, history tells a different story. Dowry was not a part of ancient Indian society. It was introduced during British rule and reinforced by colonial laws that marginalized women. By blaming Hinduism or Indian culture for dowry, we ignore the complex historical forces that shaped this practice. As we move forward, let's focus on restoring the values of equality and empowerment that once defined Indian society. Let's work together to end the dowry system and create a future where every woman can live with dignity and respect. After all, the true essence of any culture lies in how it treats its women. And India, with its rich history and vibrant diversity, has the potential to lead the way.